So we're going to get into some deal structure case studies. These are deals that I've actually done. These are businesses that I've actually bought. And I'm going to get into showing you guys how I structured these deals, how I bought these businesses. Some of these businesses were listed on BizBuySell. Some of these businesses were on Craigslist. Some of them they were from a letter that I've sent out, right? Mailers that I've sent out, right? So we're going to get into it. So case study number one was an electric car dealership. The owner was asking $2 million for both the business and the real estate, right? So he wanted 2 million. He wanted 2 million for the business and real estate. He didn't care how we structured it, whether I put 1 million towards the real estate or 1 million towards the business. He just wanted 2 million. That was his price. And so my point of entry was just $3,500, right? So I was able literally to buy this business with just $3,500, and that was for the real estate appraisal. And I'm going to get into the deal structure later to show you how I was able to do that, right? So revenue of this business, the business was doing $2.1 million in top line sales, and then the EBITDA or the net profit was 200 grand, right? So it wasn't doing too well, but it was a deal where I could get in with not that much money. And so, I I really didn't care, right? If I can put $3,500 in up and get a business that's cash flowing 200 grand, I mean, who's going to complain about that? So the deal structure, the seller was asking for $2 million, and he told me that the real estate would appraise somewhere around there. I paid $3,500 for the real estate. It got appraised at 1.94. And so what I did was I negotiated the real estate down to 1.6, and for the business to be included in the sale. And the way that I was able to negotiate that down was, I mean, this wasn't a conversation. This wasn't a conversation that happened, within our first meeting, right? This was over the course of a couple of weeks, a couple of months, where we just went back and forth, right? We went back and forth, and I would pinpoint on his motivation with wanting to sell. He began to like me, he began to trust me, and he felt like I was the perfect person to buy this business. And so, as time went on, he was wanting to get out. And so we were able to negotiate that asking price down to 1.6. And so what I did was I flipped the real estate. I got the real estate under contract, right? Um, uh, from him for 1.6, and then I got an investor that specialized in commercial properties, for 1.7. And so that investor was happy because he saw the appraisal for 1.94. He's coming into a deal with $200,000, roughly $200,000 worth of equity, right? So it just made sense. It made sense for him, right? Because that's what he does is commercial properties. So I flipped it to the real estate investor for 1.7 via a sale leaseback transaction. I made 100 grand at closing, and I used that money as operating capital. And so this business, literally, I got paid to buy it. I got paid to buy this business. I got 100 grand at closing, and then some of that money I kept for myself, and then the other portion of that money I put towards operating capital for this business, right? So that's just an example of this is one example of a deal that I've done with very little money of my own, right? So let's go into the next case study. So case study number two was a diesel shop. The seller was asking $140,000. I was able to buy this business with no money out of pocket. The revenue was $350,000 in top line sales, and then the EBITDA or the profit was about 100 grand. So here's the deal structure. The seller asked for $140,000 cash due to retirement. I brought in investors at 20% equity for 40 grand each at a $200,000 valuation. So in essence, I valuated the business at 200 grand. And that was just I just took 2 times EBITDA, so 2 times the profit, and I said, look, this business is worth 200 grand. And I went to some investors, and I'm going to get into those investors on the next case study, where I found one of those investors from in the next case study. But I went to the investors and I said, look, this business is worth 200 grand. Would you like to be a part of this deal? Because I'm about to buy it. And both of them said, look, I'll put in 40 grand. We'll go into it together. I'll put in 40 grand. I'll put in 40 grand. And so, they gave me 80 grand. And so out of that 80 grand, I put 35 grand down at closing. right? And then I negotiated with the seller for the remaining balance as seller financing at $105,000 over 36 months. The way I exited out of this deal, ultimately those investors bought out the remaining shares at a $200,000 valuation, and you'll understand why they bought me out when I get into the third case study. So this was another deal where, and this deal actually I found this one on Craigslist. The case study number one was a deal that I found on Biz Buy Sell, but this one was I actually found this business listed on Craigslist, and I was able to walk away with a nice chunk of change. So let's go into case study number three. So case study number three was a light duty diesel shop. This business was actually listed on Biz Buy Sell by the seller. They were asking $1 million entry. I came into this business with $1. That's how much I was able to get it for. Revenue was $2 million. That's top line sales, and then EBITDA was $250,000. So what was the deal structure? The seller, he had it listed for $1 million. I had negotiated for 50% equity of this business for $1. Now, the question you may have is why would anybody want to give up equity of their $1 million business for $1? Like, why would somebody be open to doing something like that, right? So there's an understanding that you have to have, right? So there's two different types of businesses. You have I'd say profitable businesses on paper, and then you have unprofitable business on paper, like, right? So some businesses on paper, they look great and you can go to SBA and anybody can get a loan for them. And then you have other businesses that would be considered, unprofitable or distressed on paper, right? So the owner is receiving a lot of value out of that business, right? They have a house, they have multiple cars, they got boats, they got RVs, right? They're sending their kids to college through the business. But on paper, when their company files their tax returns, the company is not showing a profit. And the reason why is because the owner is sucking that profit out, right? Or there's a lot of ad backs in that company, and if we work together, I'll kind of show you what ad backs are. But really, what ad backs, I'll just say it. What ad backs are, it's income that's despised as expenses on a profit and loss statement. And so, a lot of cases, these owners, they have like a whole bunch of ad backs, and so their business, their bottom line, their profit and loss statements, the bottom line on their tax returns, no bank will underwrite it. Like this business, he was doing a million. I mean, 2 million in revenue. Now, EBITDA 250,000. That was with the ad backs. Like that was like with him, that was the money that he was taking out of the business. On his tax returns, the business was like negative 20 grand, right? But he was walking away with 250 grand every year. And so we were able to look at the P&Ls, look at the expenses and tell, based on the ad backs that he had, that the business was actually doing 250. And so the problem with that again is no one can get a loan for a business if it's not cash flowing on paper. And so I was able to explain that to the seller, and what I shared with him was, he wanted to just retire. At that time, he wanted to get out of the business because he was just burnt out. And so, I said, well, if you want to just retire, give me equity. What I'll do is I'll come in and I'll run the thing. I'll run it, and then you can exit. You can go out, spend more time with your kids, and and do whatever else that is that you want to do. I'll bring some marketing to the business. I'll bring some management to the business. I'll bring in a manager to actually run the place from day to day, and just in exchange for equity. And then what we'll do is um, I'm gonna once I soup this business up, I'm gonna put it back on the market, right? I'm gonna show profit for 3 years because that's the one thing that we have to do, right? We got to show profit for 3 years because if we can show profit for 3 years, then anybody can come in and get a loan. So we're gonna show profit for 3 years, and then I'm gonna sell it. And so when I sell it, I we can share in that profit because otherwise you're not gonna be able to sell it. And so the seller agreed. And so he agreed to that. He gave me 50% equity for $1. During the course of this deal and us working together, we kind of started thinking about going in a different direction. I had a lender that was offering 250 grand via MCA. And so I brought that to the seller. I said, look, I got these guys, they want to give us 250 grand. Uh, you know, if this is something you're open to, then we can do it. And so he said, sure. So we got the 250 grand. I gave the seller half of that, right? And then along the course of this deal, I found case study number two. So I found that other diesel shop, and it invigorated the owner of this shop. Like he just got excited. He was like, man, like this is like I can grow my business to two locations. I mean, like I'm excited. I want to get back into the business. And so what he did was he took 40 grand of that 125 grand that I gave him, and he invested that to buy the other diesel shop, and he brought in another investor, his friend. His friend had owns a trucking business, and he's been wanting to get in the diesel business for a while, and so he brought his friend in, and his friend put in 40 grand. So that was how that kind of worked. Um, Ultimately, they decided that they wanted to go in a different direction than what I wanted, and so I said, "Sure, you guys can take the business. I've scaled it to two, and I walked away with 125 grand in cash." Because as it says, the seller they found a renewed motivation after the acquisition of the second shop. So this is another case study of a deal that I did with very little money out of my own pocket. And so a few other acquisitions that I've done, a tire shop, a body shop, I've done a U-Haul storage facility, and then I've done a trucking company. Some of these businesses were businesses that I found on BizBuySell. One of them was from a mailer that I had sent out. This stuff is real, right? Like you can buy a business without any of your own money. If you have money, I'll say that it's great because you have a little bit more leverage, and you don't have to kiss as many frogs. But if you don't have money, you can buy a business. And one thing that I do want to say about buying a business with none of your own money, like whenever someone says, buying a business, no money down, unless if the business, in most cases when they're saying that, if it's like a deal like where I did that, I bought half the business for a buck. In most cases, there's some sort of distress scenario, right? Like the business is distressed, or you have a distressed owner, or they may be in a space where they're just ready to just move on and get out, right? And so those businesses are going to require you to get your hands dirty for you to get into that business. Um, but if you want a business that you don't want to get your hands dirty, right? You want a business where you don't have to work in it day to day, then it's going to require some sort of money, right? It's going to require money. And you'll hear guys talking about, even those types of businesses that are profitable, you'll hear them saying, oh, I bought this business, no money down. What they really mean is they were able to acquire some sort of loan, right? So when they say OPM, they're talking about a loan. They got some sort of loan for it, whether it was a loan from the bank or a loan from some sort of a vendor. So I want to leave you with this thought. Buying a business is better than starting one from scratch, right? Let's look at Bill Gates. Bill Gates did not found Microsoft, right? That wasn't a company that he started from scratch. He actually found an advertisement for Microsoft in a magazine, and then he reached out to the owners and he put a deal together and he bought them out, and then he scaled it from there, right? Ray Kroc. Ray Kroc, they actually did a movie called The Founder about McDonald's, and the ironic thing is Ray Kroc did not found McDonald's. Like he didn't start that company from scratch, right? That McDonald's was already running. That you had the McDonald's brothers, they were running it. He came across those guys because he was selling, I think it was milkshake machines, and he came across their business. He liked the way they operated, and he put a deal together. He structured a deal that gave him, rights to start new locations, and then he actually created the McDonald's Corporation, using the momentum and the existing structure that the McDonald brothers had already put together, right? So that was a business that he didn't start from scratch. He found it and he bought rights to it, right? So when you think about that, if you're an entrepreneur, or you're somebody that's wanting to go out and you just want to own your own business, I would ask you to just think about, wrap your mind around the idea of buying a business versus starting one from scratch. Like if you're a restaurateur, right? You have the idea of you want to start your own restaurant. Just go on bizbuysell.com and just look up restaurants for sale in your area. And what I'll tell you, what you'll find is that the money, the capital that you're going to put into your startup venture, right? You could take that same capital and buy an existing restaurant that already has a customer base, right? And you could go in there and maybe you change the menu around. Maybe you add, maybe they're not marketing and then you add marketing to it, right? If you're in the tech space and you're wanting to, start a new app from scratch, you could find a tech business that's already running, buy them out, right? Or structure a deal that makes sense for both parties, and and now you can take the foundation that they've laid and then just take it to the next level, right? I mean, this works for anything. Landscaping. I mean, maybe you're a guy that just cuts grass and you're like, man, I'm wanting to scale this business. Instead of you going out and trying to hire employees and then trying to market yourself to scale, you could find an existing landscaping company that already has contracts, already has connections, and you're jumping in day one and you're making money, right? The money that you put out for that to buy that business, it's paying you back the day that you buy it. So I just wanted to leave you guys with that thought. Buying a business is better than starting one from scratch. And that's what that's what this channel is all about. Skipping the startup, skipping the time, energy, and effort that you have to put in with starting a business from scratch by just buying one. All right. So with that, you guys have a good one. Thanks.